of Detectives from Passaic County. We have two announcements to make today. The first announcement is the expansion of the Bergen County Cold Case Homicide Unit. Under agreement with our partner agencies, it will now be known as the North Jersey Regional Cold Case Task Force, and it will be comprised of members of the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office, the New Jersey State Police, the Passaic County Prosecutor's Office, the Essex County Prosecutor's Office, and the Newark Police Department. Each of these agencies has committed detectives full-time to work together here in Bergen County to bring justice and closure to unsolved cases in our respective jurisdictions. We believe that this task force will serve as a force multiplier for the northern part of our state. It is dedicated exclusively to the review of unsolved homicide and sexual assault cases. I'd like to ask my Chief of Detectives, Rob Anzalotti, to announce the most recent arrest that we've had and to talk a little bit about the task force. Rob?
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to echo the prosecutor's comments and thank Attorney General Graywall, Colonel Callahan, and our partner county prosecutors for their support in this very important endeavor. Our most recent case that the task force has solved, which we're here to announce today, involves the early morning rape of a young female that occurred on April 15th of 2005 in the borough of Palisades Park, New Jersey, here in Bergen County. That sexual assault occurred at gunpoint, and despite the best efforts of both the Palisades Park Police Department and the Bergen County prosecutors at that time, meaning back in 2005, that case went cold without the development of a suspect. In this expanded model of our cold case task force, we've expanded our goals to not only include the solves of unsolved homicides, but also to look at cold case sexual assaults and see what we can do in that area. With some help of science from the Forensic Bureau of the New Jersey State Police, the State Police Lab was able to develop some DNA in this case. Members of our newly formed North Jersey Cold Case Task Force assisted with that DNA, developed a suspect in the case, and just last Friday we made an arrest, an individual by the name of Roydell Cameron. He was located with the assistance of the Port Authority Police Department, attempting to flee the country to Jamaica. He was captured as he was boarding a flight after he realized that we were out looking for him. So I'd like to thank the Port Authority Police Department for their assistance with that. It was an important arrest for us. He's currently at Rikers Island in New York City, pending extradition here to Bergen County to face these charges of aggravated sexual assault and weapons offenses. So I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the men of our cold case task force who are lined up off to my right, as well as that of Assistant Prosecutor Danielle Grutenboer, who's handling the case, for their efforts in bringing a closure to this very important case. It is not without notice that this is the third solve since we formed this task force just a short year ago, and I expect great things in this newly expanded model of the task force. Thank you, Prosecutor.
Thank you, Rob. Can I ask the Attorney General to make some comments about the task force?
Thank you, Dennis. Good morning, everyone. It is an honor and a privilege to be back in Bergen County with the men and women of the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office for today's important announcement. And it's important because when a crime remains unsolved, especially a serious crime like a murder or a sexual assault, justice is denied. And victims and survivors deserve answers. They deserve closure. And the community needs to know that a violent criminal is not left free to harm others. Because when we don't have answers, our sense of security is shaken, and our faith in justice is tested. That's why law enforcement officers continue to diligently investigate cold cases for as long as it takes. We owe it to the victims and their families, and we owe it to the larger community. And when we achieve results like those that we are announcing today, we're reminded that our criminal justice system works. And it works in large part because of the dedication of the many, many people, especially those standing with me this morning and around the room. So I want to thank Colonel Callahan, I want to thank Prosecutor Callow and Chief Anzalani for both their vision and their leadership in this effort. And I also want to recognize all of the individual members of this Regional Cold Case Task Force for their efforts on this matter and on others. And I want to commend those who saw the promise of this task force and have joined in this effort, particularly Passaic County Prosecutor Valdez, who is here, Essex County Prosecutor Stevens, the Newark Police Department under the direction of Director Ambrose and Chief Henry. Today's announcement also validates this regional and collaborative approach that we're undertaking. Individual agencies, as we all know, are often stretched thin, and they frequently do not have all the resources or the time that's needed to focus their attention on these older and more challenging cases. The Regional Cold Case Task Force has shown that by sharing personnel and expertise and ideas and technology and other resources, we can solve these older cases. Because by coming together as we have on even decades-old matters, we can bring closure and we can deliver justice to families who desperately seek it. So I want to thank Chief Anzalani, I want to thank all the members of law enforcement that participate in this effort, and most importantly, I want to thank my friend, Prosecutor Callow, for his leadership of this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, General, for your words in support of the task force. I'd like to ask Prosecutor Stevens, would you say a few words about your contribution to the task force?
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Dennis. Good morning. I can say without fear of contradiction that all families deserve closure. Having had the opportunity to meet with some families whose cases have been brought to a great resolution because a perpetrator was caught, I can think of no more rewarding opportunity or time I've served as prosecutor than that experience. And I think that everyone here should have that opportunity, and every family should have that opportunity. Essex County is proud to work in collaboration with this group and all groups, because that's how law enforcement will operate going forward, in a collaborative manner in order that justice will be served. So with the efforts of our with the prosecutors and obviously our investigatory staff, headed by our Chief of Detectives, Mitch McGuire, we're dedicated to join with this effort, and we're proud to do so. And we thank the efforts of everybody on the task force, of course led by General Graywall, and will participate going forward. So we look forward to many, many successful resolutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prosecutor. Prosecutor Valdez, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Prosecutor. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the effort to continue our daily work of partnering together to solve many of these complicated and difficult crimes. Experience has taught us three things. Open cases mean open wounds for families. We also know that our investigations span beyond city limits, so working in partnership, especially with our bordering counties, makes perfect sense. And the last thing we know, the best thing we know, is that when we work together collaboratively, we can share information, resources, ideas, and energy. Passaic County is committed to this effort, and we will stay with it from beginning to end. Thank you.
Thank you, Prosecutor. Colonel Callahan.
Thanks, Prosecutor. Good morning, everybody. I'll just echo the remarks of those who spoke before me, and to Prosecutor Valdez's point. Violent recidivist offenders do not care about municipal borders, they do not care about county borders, and that's why this task force approach, whether it's in cold cases of sexual assaults and homicides, whether it's in weapons trafficking, whether it's in narcotics or human trafficking, that's why it works. The collaboration, and we use that word time and time again, press conference after press conference. It's not just one uniform or one agency standing up here with a success story. It's multiple agencies dedicated to one mission, regardless of what patch is on our sleeve or what lapel pin is on our suit jacket. It's about getting the mission done and setting egos at the door. And today is just another example of that certainly I'm proud to be a part of. I see Captain McGowan, Captain Procaccino, and I know Detective Kurt, just to call out the troopers in the room. But it's everybody lined up around the room out here, and we just have the opportunity to get up and offer a few remarks, but it's the men and women on the task force that really lead to the success of this. So we're humbled and honored to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. You know, I'd like to stress what a major commitment this is from all of the jurisdictions involved. When we reflect on the operations of our office and what gets priority, it seems that there are never enough resources. But in reflecting on what our priorities are, as Prosecutor Valdez said, these are open wounds. These are open wounds to the victims of sexual assault. These are open wounds to the families and the friends of those who are victims of homicide. These wounds never heal. We can't heal these wounds, but we can give a little balm and bring closure to that chapter, that tragic chapter of these people's lives. A major commitment, and I'm going to suggest that we've had major success. 3 cases, 3 old cases, 2 of them from the 90s that have been solved in, I think, a relatively short period of time with the different resources from the various jurisdictions, different viewpoints and different perspectives, different eyes on these cases, leads that have been followed up very meticulously and assiduously, and they have borne fruit. And I believe that if we continue to work together, as I know we will, there will be more fruit from this task force. Thank you. We would be pleased to answer any questions that you do have, if we can.
How many open cold cases are there right now?
Good question. Good question. And I don't know that we have a firm idea of what that is. I know in Bergen County we have cold cases that go back to the 50s. That I know Rob has looked at from time to time. Rob, would you like to comment a little bit?
I can only speak to Bergen County. In terms of homicides, we have over 100 cold case homicides still open. So I'd have to defer to the other counties for the statistics over there, and I don't have a number on the unsolved sexual assaults because there are many. But as in sexual assault cases, they're a little more complicated to figure out which ones are old and not, because sometimes the victims don't want to go forward.
Dating back to 1990, Passaic County has 125 open cases, and those are homicide cases.
With regard to Essex, I do not have a firm number, but on one thing I can say definitively: we have more. We have more of everything. We have such a significant part of the violent crime that we deal with in the state. So all of our efforts are moving toward, one, not only just more than getting a number, because a number certainly is large compared to the rest of the state, but we are moving as assiduously as we can to bring that number down and to look at our percentages. I think our closeout rates are as high as, higher than the national average, so we are certainly making strides in that effort.
How the suspect's DNA got into the system? Do we know how that all transpired?
You're talking in the recent case?
The cold case that you just saw.
Yes, he was arrested in another state, and that's what put his DNA in the database. And of course, our crime scene sample was already in the database, and we were fortunate enough, the state police, under the direction of Colonel Callahan, was able to make a DNA match. And then based on that lead, obviously we have to make sure that we have the right person, some investigative work, but we did, in fact, arrest the suspect on Friday.
I mean, was he involved in other crimes that were similar? Do we know? Can you say?
I'm going to defer to the prosecutor before I overstep on any legal bounds there.
Well, we don't want to comment on anybody's past record. I don't think that would be proper. The only thing that we would like to stress is the facts of this case.
Yeah, we're just asking because between then and now, just wondering if he had been involved in anything else.
Well, we're not going to answer that question at this point.
Have you spoken to the family of the victim?
Yes, ma'am. We spoke to the victim and the family, yes. Yes, of course we have. We've spoken to the victim and the family members, and we have her full support going forward.
What were their reactions?
It's just like a lot of these cases, a mixed reaction of both apprehension because it's an old wound that you're now reopening, but relief that somebody cared and that there's been progress and some closure.
Was it this specific case that acted as a catalyst for this expansion? Why now? Was it one specific case or a group of cases, or these cases, continue to come up?
It's not one specific case, but I think it's the volume of cases that remain unsolved. And as I mentioned in my remarks, we are stretched thin dealing with the cases coming in and day out, and sometimes we don't have the resources to go back and look at old files in the way we should. And by pooling our resources, by bringing assets from across different agencies, we can devote the time looking at those old cases, and importantly, applying new techniques that might not have existed at that time to those old cases and bring closure in a number of these cases. So it wasn't a specific case, but it was the need to bring folks together, to put different eyes and different experiences together in a room and bring different resources to bear, as well as new technology to bear on older cases to bring closure and justice where we can.
For those potential suspects whose DNA is not in CODIS, do you foresee pairing with individual DNA testing labs, genealogists, to try to find a suspect that way by tracing other family trees for people who put their DNA in a public database?
We have not yet done that, but we are prepared to follow any lead and any technique that will bear fruit in this endeavor.
How many detectives are going to be devoted to this from each agency? How many are they devoted?
We have at the present time one person from each agency, but when we begin working on a case, we supplement the manpower from the various agencies. So at any given time, there'll be more people working on a case than the various people that are permanently assigned.
So is it everybody who's in that unit is going to work on a certain case, or is it people from that jurisdiction that work on cases that have to do with theirs? I mean, how does it work?
We are not dividing it up by jurisdiction. This is a cooperative effort, and a part of this effort is to put new perspective, new eyes on these cases, to see if a new person will see something that may have been overlooked in the first go-round. So it's a cooperative effort. All of the people work on all of the cases.
You said you have around 100 or more cold cases in each of these jurisdictions. How do you decide what case you look at first? How do you decide where do you start, and what's the process?
I think the process is you look at those cases which have a viability to be solved. And you start putting efforts in those cases until you can't go any further, until you exhaust any investigative lead and you go on to the next case, or you solve the first case.
So just one by one?
One by one. Actually, we're working on more than one case at this time. We're working on cases from each of the jurisdictions.
Can you give any more detail on exactly how you found this person? Said you hadn't developed the suspects in that 2005 case, and now you arrested somebody. How did you
Sure. I think we spoke about that, Steve. The DNA hit from the state police lab is what gave us the investigative lead we needed. Without
DNA you had from before?
There was DNA from the crime scene, and then that was already in the database. It had not borne any fruit, to use the prosecutor's terms, for all these years. And then just recently, the state police notified us that they had made a match with an individual, and that gave us the investigative lead that we needed for the guys to go out and do their work.
Any other questions?
Is he going to be brought over to Bergen County, or are you going to try to bring him over here, or to face the charges?
He's pending extradition.
Which airport was he arrested at?
JFK.
JFK.
Is there any extra or new funding that's going to be going into this?
No new funding. We're using the funding that we already have. Thank you very much.
I didn't want to get stuck.